Everyone, for episode 68 of the Rental Roundtable, we had on Mike Lemaster. He is the president and CEO of Black Star Auctions based out of Chicago, Illinois. We talked about his journey starting the company with his sons in the last 7 or 8 years. He's a serial entrepreneur who started a couple of companies before this as well, and talked about what it's like starting a company with your kids. We talked about what happens if you're not moving inventory. What do you do? If you need to sell some equipment, what are some of the things you can do? Talk about the importance of bringing a regional and a national and even international buyer base when you're selling equipment. And we talked about the different ways to sell equipment privately, pre-sale, pre-auction, and auction. So if you're thinking about selling equipment, you want to learn more about what Black Star does, a really fun episode. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 68. We have on Mike Lemaster, the president and CEO of Black Star Auctions. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate it.
So I have a new background. This is my actual background, but for the people who listen to the episode, probably the first 30 episodes, I had that same background, Mike. So I'm glad you moved into my office space downtown Manhattan overlooking Central Park. It's a great office, right?
I appreciate it. There's some wisdom on the walls, huh?
That's right. I used to have a big Quipli logo. I see you took that down, but yeah. Anyways, so you're based in Chicago, beautiful city. We're here Friday before Labor Day coming up. How's the weather? Probably amazing this time of year in Chicago.
Yeah, it really is. It's typical Midwestern weather. It's more fall weather than summer, which we're really enjoying. A little bit different than what you've got down there in the southeast.
Yeah, we're still in summer until October, it feels like. And I was in Arizona, Phoenix this week, and that is not fall. 105 degrees, 110 degrees. No, I'll take your weather. For the summer, wintertime, it's nice, obviously, but right now you've got it made. So, Mike, appreciate you coming on today. So you're running Black Star Auction, started that 7 or 8 years ago. But I love if you kind of share some of your background. You're a serial entrepreneur. This business you've started with your sons. Tell me about what you've been doing and how you got to this point today.
You bet. Really was in corporate America for the longest time. Frustrated, probably because I wanted to be on my own, have my own company, and so at 48 years old, I finally it was a good time. I started a consulting company where I was helping owners with their sales and their marketing to improve their sales and marketing and taking it to the next level. And fortunately, many of those things that we shared with our clients, we're using ourselves here now at Blackstar. So I did that for about 8 years, and then I had a friend of my son's said that he had a niche going on that he needs some help with, and that was selling used Apple computers.
Hmm.
And I joined him, and that went gangbusters. And I was bought out of that, which allowed me to retire and be done and go travel the world with my wife. But that wasn't going to be the case because my sons came out of a family dealership, and we then started Black Star 8 years ago. So my sons and I own Black Star, and we've been building it. And this is the third company I've had. So prior to starting companies, most of my focus was in the sales and the marketing side of things.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, can you give me the 30-second pitch? What is Black Star? Who do you generally work with? I know you don't only work with rental companies. That's one of the niches you do work with. But what is Black Star, and how can a rental company think about what Black Star
Sure.
does?
Black Star is an auction company. It is an appraisal company, and then also I would refer to it as a used equipment selling and buying company. We help companies sell their equipment, and we help companies find equipment, and then we appraise. We've had quite a few appraisals where people do it for, you know, the Department of Transportation. They have to meet certain criteria, or they're looking to sell their company, and so we do those appraisals as well.
And when would a rental company generally engage with you guys? I know you guys do dispersals for retirements. Like when generally do rental companies reach out to you?
It varies. We're sort of like a pinch hitter for them or a designated hitter. Um, they have their own local market, and they have their own sales system, And it's when they have something that's maybe underutilized or slow moving or difficult to sell into their existing buyer base that they ask us to get involved. Or if they're looking for some inventory that isn't at their normal sources, we're able to find that for them. We don't do as much of that. We do more selling of their assets than anything. But I would say that since we're in the midst of baseball season or winding down, we're more like a pinch hitter or a designated hitter for rental companies. We kind of augment their staff.
So if a rental company is sitting on a piece of equipment they can't rent for some reason, they would reach out to Blackstar to help sell that piece of equipment, potentially buying very particular piece of equipment that they need as well. And then obviously if they're retiring, which you've done, I think a dozen of those in the last few years, dispersing of all of those assets, not the land, not the building, but the asset part. That's probably a lot of it, right? So you're not just doing one or two pieces of equipment at a time; you're doing the whole fleet. That would be a much bigger project, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but selling, anywhere one, two, six pieces of equipment is the bread and butter for us at Blackstar. But we have done over a dozen retirement dispersals where we have retired the entire fleet for rental companies as well as contractors. But it's typically when we're working with our rental customers, it's a few pieces that they're looking to move, but because we're family owned and we have the ability to be flexible, we can do special events. If they want to do a spring sale, we can make it a dedicated sale for them. Many of our competitors will just take that equipment and put it into a bigger sale. But we can do the dedicated events, and that usually brings a better return when we do that for our customers.
Mm. And what makes Blackstar different than some of the other traditional ways of selling equipment? Like, and particularly like when you started the company 7 or 8 years ago, what did you see in the market that said, "Hey, there's a gap, there's the opportunity for us to fill"? How did you see that, and how do you guys sort of solve that today?
Yeah, well, I think the gap is that we give the owners of the equipment more control and we have more flexibility because of who we are. And we have auction services, we have live auctions, we have timed auctions, we have them on a regular basis, but we also sell pre-sales and pre-auction. So it's three different channels that they have reaching a far greater buyer base. And so we also customize many of our arrangements. So we don't come in with a one size fits all either, and we don't have any hidden fees. So all the things that the larger auction companies have been doing, um, and um, and maybe not being as customer friendly, we're filling those gaps, and it seems to be working. Um, we just recently put some of our testimonials into our website, and um, the developer said you gotta shut it down. We don't want that many testimonials, so that was a good problem to deal with.
We have too many great happy customers. The website is crashing. The server can't handle it, right?
Yeah, and I asked the marketer. I said, "Why is that? I mean, why would you ever want to turn that spigot off? I mean, if there's some good
Yeah.
news, let's get the word out, right?"
I have not heard that problem from a marketing person, before. What when your customers, like, leave that five-star review, what do they say particularly? Is it the customer service? Is it the flexibility? Those sort of things?
Well, our word is our bond. We're easy to access as owners. They're talking directly to us, and when we say we're going to get something done, we get it done. We're good marketers. We reach buyers that other companies aren't reaching, whether it's domestic or international. Uh, we build loyal relationships with our buyers, so we know what brands, what buyers like, what brands, or what unique applications. So it's not much different than the rental companies that are competing with
Yeah.
Sunbelt or United. What is it that they do to differentiate themselves? They have to personalize the service. They've got to be flexible. They've got to be relationship focused. I mean, you have to really set yourself apart from the big players like Ritchie Brothers and some of the other large auction companies that have been out there forever and ever.
It's funny you said that. The whole time you were talking, you're describing an independent rental company, right? You customer service, you move fast, your word is your bond. That's how the successful independents, we brought a lot of them on the show. That's how they beat the nationals. They all say the same thing. Uh, you're doing the same thing, but you're serving the rental companies, and I think obviously they probably appreciate that, right? And the things you're talking about, it's not rocket surgery. It's sort of the stuff that you would probably instill in your kids, but just doing it consistently, right? That matters.
Yeah, and I think one of the big differences is that we're doing all the things that a local rental company would be doing, but we have it with a national and international buyer base that we've built up. And
Mm.
we've known that all along that it's supply and demand, and the demand is the buyers, and the supply being the equipment. And so we focus on both of them, and our database is over 250,000 buyers and sellers. And then we work with various platforms like Sandhills with equipment backs and Proxy Bid, Bid Spotter. And then we have our own database. So a lot of our auctions are bringing in a lot of new buyers that our customers have never seen.
So if I'm a local rental company and I live in Augusta, Georgia, and I'm trying to sell my piece of equipment, generally my market is limited to Augusta or maybe the state of Georgia. What you offer is the local, regional, national access through the databases and the relationships you had built over the last 10 years. Is that right? And ultimately, by bringing in more buyers, you can increase the price.
Right. And then you're that hypothetical for Augusta, Georgia, that rental company could say, well, there are places that I can list my equipment, machinery trader and truck paper and many, many other places. But the and even the statistics are made available from Sandhills that about 90% of the equipment listed does not sell. Okay. And
Mm.
typically it sells for about 30 to 40% less than what it's being listed at. So, you know, and that's fine by some companies, but smaller rental companies need better turn than that.
Yeah.
They need more velocity than that because uh, the way they manage their fleet is critical to how they compete. You know, and so they're the speed that they turn equipment when they have old used equipment and they need to make room for some new, whether it's green that they have to because they've got some contractors in the area that are demanding that. They just have to have an outlet to turn their old equipment or their underutilized equipment into cash.
Yeah. And you mentioned, make sure I got this right. 90% of listed equipment does not sell. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's anywhere from 90 to 88%, but the statistics are published in that way. But and so they'll be out there for, and that's not a bad percentage when you think about sales in general. I mean, most people that are in sales know that a 10% hit ratio is not bad. You know, when it comes to the whole art and science of making a sell.
Yeah. And so if the hit rate's 10%, generally speaking, I imagine you guys are trying to push that higher than 10%, right? Through the different channels and expertise you have.
Oh yeah, we couldn't even be in business at that rate because there would be no need for a rental company to want to work with us.
Yeah.
Uh, the methods that we use are refined, and the first company I had, just going back to how we started, is was helping companies with their sales and marketing, and so we take both a large broadcast approach to marketing, and then we take a rifle approach to some of the loyal buyers, and then we do a lot of personal selling, targeted selling on top of it. So we
Mm.
just have to work a lot harder to find buyers to differentiate ourselves, and we've done a good job of that.
Yeah, so the baseline is 10% success rate. You guys are above that. Above 50%? Is it that high?
You know, percentages. Let's say that we're going to go to auction in December, and
Yep.
we do pre-auction uh, with a rental company, and we tell them that during the pre-auction period, we're going to do here's the price that we'll be working at. And if they're realistic and we're realistic, we have anywhere from a 20 to 50% success ratio of selling equipment prior to the auction. And those values are typically greater than the auction values. Uh, but we just recently had a live internet auction to where um, it was a total disbursement, Kyle. And uh, after 70 years of being in business, and the customer was looking for 3 million plus for their all their assets, and we ended up at 4.5. And this was a live auctioneer driven auction. So it's not always that they're going to sell better, because sometimes the auctions will drive a lot of competition.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's 10% is the old way, you guys are 20%, 30, 40, 50% prior to auction sale. I mean, I'm just seeing the value, right? Like you mentioned pinch hitter. If you want to sell your equipment, call Blackstar, right? You know, if you maybe want to sell it, list it online. If you want a 10% chance of selling it, go the old ways, right? But I think I was just trying to get a sense of where things were and where things are now with Blackstar and you starting it. So it kind of gives me a sense of, what led you to starting the company and obviously the success you've had with it.
Yeah, and then when we interact with, let's just say you were an owner of a rental company and we're interacting with you, you would really get a sense that Blackstar is partnering with you and sitting,
Yeah.
on the same side of the table with you as far as thinking through what your needs are and our suggestions, because we're not looking to win the transaction of the day. We're a young growing company. Both my sons, Andrew and Rob, are in their 30s, so that they'll be here for years. And so we're looking to build our reputation up, one customer at a time. And so we do take the time to really understand what it is you're trying to get done, and then we come as close to that, if not exceed it, as possible, in order to create the right experience.
Taking a long view, you're not trying to optimize that, get that dollar today. You're building a generational company, right? And it's funny. I don't 7 or 8 years, and you still describe yourself as a young company of where you're going, right? I've been in software companies 7, 8 years. As a software company is a long time, but
Like dog years, and don't take off on that. I don't want you to add on that.
fair enough. And I was going to ask, what's it like starting a company with with your kids? Because we talk about a lot of rental companies. It's first generation, second generation, third generation, and we talk to people taking the company over a lot, working with family through that transition. We haven't heard so much, fathers starting the company with their kids. It's probably in some sense got to be the best thing in the world and sometimes the worst thing in the world at the same time. How has that experience been starting a family business with your family?
Well, anybody that has a family business knows that you learn things about your family that you don't even learn as a son or as a father, and those are things that you can get through if you've got the right mindsets. What I really particularly like, Kyle, about this is that um, both my sons, like me, are founders at Blackstar, and so they have had to deal with all the challenges and rigors of building a company up from the dirt. And I think that that's a different mindset than taking something and running with it that's already been built up. Now, that's a different skill set when you're second generation or third generation, and it has its own challenges. But I think that this has been very enjoyable for me. I'm very involved with my son's childhoods as far as being a coach and involved with different sports and different and taking vacations. And we really and so I'm back with them. So I think it's a treat. Now I'm getting a little bit older, so they're picking the pace up and taking the reins far more on different things. So that's good to see as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you were a coach when they were little. Now you're sort of a player coach. I'm sure you're in on the field with them, but it's your third company, so you know sort of the pitfalls a little bit. And I have to imagine if they weren't so eager to start this company, would you be starting this company right now, or would you be on the beach playing golf right now instead?
Yeah, if they weren't as into it, it's not like I needed it. That I'm a workaholic and I have to just have work that feel relevant,
Yeah.
I can play pretty good. I can vacation pretty good. But I do enjoy work, and I do enjoy building businesses, and I'm I'm truly enjoying building this. Not only with my sons, but we've got some good people here that have been with us for 6, 7 years, and that come with experience in the industry, that come from outside the industry. So we've got a good team, and thank God, because the Lemasters have certain DNA, and they need other people to offset it, to complement us. So,
That's right.
uh,
For
and
every
we
Steve Jobs, you need a Tim Cook sort of thing, right? You got to have compliments. You can't have all certain personality. My
right.
partner's the
Oh
same
yeah,
way. It keeps me in
yeah,
check.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I have to imagine it's very rewarding, building a company. Building a company itself is very rewarding, but being able to do it with your family and your kids, right? You know, that's the dream. So that's awesome to hear kind of your why of what you're doing. Um, Getting back to sort of expanding the buyer base, right? So if I'm a rental company, I've got a couple pieces of equipment that I want to move. How can I think about expanding that out of just my local market to go national, region, maybe even internationally? What are some of the things I can do to expand that buyer base?
Well, we're not going to give them all of our trade secrets or our magic. So I'll just say hire us because of what we
Yeah.
have done, and that is that in building this company, we've known that the demand has to be there, the buyer base, and so we operate it at a level to where we can compete with the big players as far as finding buyers. For instance, and rather than talking generalities, we had a large retirement auction in April, uh, about 250 pieces of equipment. And a lot of the large local players in the Chicago market were looking at some of the premier pieces that they got outbid by people in other parts of the country. And it it actually took that's the one where the auction ended up at 4.5 million, and far exceeded uh, the local market's expectations as well as the owner. So I guess to answer your question specifically, everything that we've been doing since we've gotten started was to build a national and international buyer base. I mean, this last auction that we had, things went to the Philippines, Poland, Mexico, and Canada are always in the equation. And uh, that demand side of things has to be able to meet the supply side. And so the rental companies have the supply, and we hook them up with the demand.
Yeah. And, obvious supply and demand 101, econ 101, you increase the demand, your price will increase, right? And even just being able to sell to begin with, the likelihood of it selling, right, will increase as well. It makes total sense why a rental company would call Blackstar. But is there a scenario when like calling Blackstar does not make sense? Like when would it make sense to just to stay local? Because in some sense, if you're gonna do it's great customer service, you're gonna do the work, you've already built the network. I call you guys to help move a piece of equipment. Sounds pretty good. Sounds like the easy button. Plus, potentially make more money on it. But why would I not call Blackstar? Are there any scenarios where it doesn't make sense to use you guys?
Oh yeah, I mean we believe that we play a important role, but local any company who has been out there in business has built up not only survival skills but ways to exist,
Yeah.
customers that buyers that are there for them, and resources, and we we talk that out loud, and sometimes we find out that they might be better off staying local. They might get a better price from somebody who needs that within a geographical area, but sometimes their area might be saturated, and they need to expand beyond their saturated market. But I think there's a lot of instances where they can survive on their own, and they can do darn good work, you know. And
And
so we
maybe
don't we don't
and maybe you have a customer, right, who rents the piece of equipment a lot and they want to buy it from you. You have a relationship, you get a fair price, and you want to do that customer, you know, right by them, which creates more rental opportunities in the future, right? Something like that, where you maybe aren't even optimizing your to the dollar, right? You're just taking a longer view, sometimes sell it to your customers, right? So rent to own sort of mindset. On the international side, this is maybe a naive question. I don't know how this works. Has that changed at all, the international market in the last year? I don't know if tariffs would be impacting this at all.
You
But
know,
have you seen any
we're not.
shifts on that?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of effect of tariffs. We're not seeing a lot of effect of tariffs. I mean, tariffs eventually, a lot of the OEMs stocked up on equipment before the tariffs hit. Okay, that inventory will dwindle, and as that inventory dwindles, the rental companies will be looking at higher prices for new, and so they'll probably hang on to their used a little bit longer,
Mm,
and then they'll need to turn it at some point in time. So we haven't really seen that yet, where the tariffs are impacting our business. Some niches may see it more than we are. Okay, let's just put it that way. But it's starting to creep in, but it has not. It hasn't changed people's behaviors. Let's put it that way.
yeah, that's fair. In 2021, 22, maybe 23, we were sort of like for the rental companies were more sort of they were undersupplied, right? They couldn't get fleet. Now they sort of corrected for that. Where do you see this going next few years? Are we going to be moving back towards sort of an undersupply scenario if people aren't buying the equipment because they don't want to pay the tariff price?
It's interesting you say that. I mean, people are more concerned with where they're at right now than where it's going for the most part,
Hmm.
because that's their profitability. So let's
Yeah.
talk about where they're at right now. You're right. There's oversupply at a lot of places. They're sitting on inventory, and that inventory has juice that they're paying on it,
Hmm.
interest, and that's where we can come in and create some velocity, create a turn, and that's where I say that we're a nice hedge, a nice buffer to get through those patches. Um, and then I think there will be a leveling off. We can't. I mean, you get economists in a room, and they all differ in what they're saying. What's going to happen? I mean, you listen to the talking
Yeah.
heads on the news right now, and there's competing stories. But I think that the inventory is up right now, and I think that that's the biggest concern
Yeah.
with um, both rental companies and dealers.
Yeah, inventory's up, and I do think where things move, talking heads all are they're 100% confident, and they're not 100% accurate. I don't think their hit
Exactly.
rates
But yeah,
more like a baseball player, 30%, sort of thing gets you to Hall of Fame. I feel like sometimes. Uh, Talk to me about like selling to particular buyers who are loyal to specific brands or models. How common is that when you're talking to buyers? Are they like, hey, I need an aerial lift. I don't really care where it comes from, or is it more, hey, there's a certain brand I need to buy? What's the mix there?
yeah, yeah. Well, you can. Brand loyalty is really important, and it goes all the way back to their mechanics and their operators. Uh, an operator might be more comfortable on a bobcat skid steer than they are a deer or a cat. Same thing with a dozer or a excavator or a loader. So uh, and we actually do a lot of data mining to where we know what our buyers are loyal to, what they're
Mm,
looking for, and we're able to get in touch with them when our rental customers have units to sell, and that has benefited both our customers and ourselves significantly. Or there's a unique application, uh, uh, you know, uh, you know, a a, uh, a large crane is a lot more difficult to find a buyer base than a skid steer, you know? And so not that not that a whole lot of rental companies are hanging on to large cranes, but just to make the example of a unique piece of equipment. So, and then there's some unicorns that they have, and they bought them because one of their good customers said, "I really need this thing that can cut grass without a labor on it at XYZ angle." And there's not too many people that are needing that. looking for that. So we have methods to find the buyers on those too. So
Yeah, so brand's obviously super important to particular buyers. What do you find like the hardest piece of equipment to move? Is it those unicorn sort of uh, Frankenstein piece of equipment that they're like, why did that someone manufacture this to begin with? Like, what are
oh
some of the
yeah,
examples of the hardest things to move?
yeah, those are hard to move too. But then let's just say that uh, uh, they have 30 like kind units, and there's a certain way you want to take that many like kind units out to the market. Okay, there's uh, uh, finite buyers
Mm.
for those. So you have the oddball equipment, but then you also have large quantities of like kind, and you got to really be strategic in how you disperse like kind. It's not like one size fits all. But rental companies typically are not dealing with that problem. Uh, uh, and the oddballs don't really happen that often because they have to fleet up in a way that they know they're going to get good utilization. But some mistakes have been made, and they may have fleeted up in a brand that they're getting out of, and they're crossing over to a new brand, and so they come to us because they have 100 units of XYZ brand that they're now going to ABC brand. Okay,
Mm.
and just because they see the future is better by aligning with a new brand of rental equipment.
Interesting. So some rental companies will fully wholesale switch their main OEM partner, right? And now you have 100 pieces of equipment that are all sort of similar. That can create weird situations in the market, right? Now you're flooding it with supply. Is that sort of where you're going with that? Is like,
Yeah.
and that makes it hard to maintain
Well, and
price
then think about
integrity.
it. Why are they getting rid of one line? It probably did not do for them what they needed it to in their local marketplace,
Yeah,
because they sure wouldn't be getting it out. I mean, if you've got a
right.
guy on your team hitting 333 and he's leading the majors in home runs, you're not going to trade him.
Unless you're the Dallas Cowboys and you got rid of Mika Parsons this week.
Okay, you just alienated your cowboy contingency, but okay.
Well, I'm a Commanders fan, so I could do that. This is my team. Are you Bears, by the way? I hope I didn't offend
Oh
you.
yeah, I am a Bears fan. I was raised in Ohio, so I was a Cleveland Browns fan for the longest time. But after being here for about 30 years,
You saw the light.
the metamorphosis went on, and then the Browns also left for a while, so it
Yeah.
was easy to become a Bears fan.
But the point, is made, though, people don't sell their winners, generally speaking, right? So if you are fully wholesale switching it from an OEM, there's the supply, implications, but there's also the perception, right, of is this manufacturer not that great, right? Which is probably something you have to figure out how to take that to market to the buyers, right?
Yep, and I'm very careful not to mention brands, manufacturers, because uh, one person's misery could be our fortune, uh, uh, and um,
That's right.
and vice versa. So we have to turn problems into opportunities. That's what we have to do.
That's right. Well, can you talk to me a little bit about the different ways to sell equipment? So maybe give me the 101 class here. There's private, pre-auction, auction. What are the different ways a rental company can sell equipment, and what are the different pros and cons to those different methods?
Yeah, there's some equipment that should go immediately to auction. Okay, there's just a lot of demand for it, and a lot of people looking for that piece. Okay, then there are some pieces that uh, need to marinate inside a pre-auction for a while, or pre-sale, and we have different systems and processes set up with our marketing and our sales team and our partners. Our partner plays a big role in this, working with Sand Hills and their various resources. And then as well, we have over 500 storage facilities, and I share that too because some of our customers store equipment at our locations while they're waiting to sell. Now, the rental companies have their own lots and yards, so that's not as much of an issue. But I think to come back to your question, um, we can go down three different avenues, and sometimes we mesh them together. We have the auction, we have pre-auction, and then we have pre-sale. Pre-sale being different, it's not necessarily committed to the auction. Pre-auction is committed to the auction, but has a runway, and then the auction.
So
And then
okay,
excuse me, Kyle, and the auction itself can be different. We can do a timed auction, online timed auction, or we do a live internet-based auction. And as well, we can do a dedicated auction versus having them be consigned into a larger group.
hmm. So how do I even think about this problem? Like I've got this piece of equipment or 3 that I wanna get rid of. Do I list it on Facebook Marketplace and call it that? Or how do I think about these different channels and where to start? Do I just either call Blackstar and you guys help me?
Well, yeah, they already all the things that you just mentioned, they know already. Okay,
Yeah.
that as far as how to disperse that piece of equipment. And so what it boils down to is the success rate great enough for their profitability and their business model. And if the success rate of dispersing their equipment as they've always done is successful, then there's no need for Black Start. Okay,
Mm,
but if they're looking to speed up the velocity, they're looking to get rid of some underutilized equipment. Uh, they're looking for a 10% tweak, a 20% tweak of improvement. Um, then I think we're a good solution.
yeah.
That's where we play.
Yeah, so some of the bread and butter, "Hey, I got this very standard piece of equipment, I know how to sell it." Yeah, they don't necessarily need help. If it's working, right, they could keep doing that. But the more challenging specialty piece of equipment or the defleeting of an OEM and the things that aren't moving, the challenging things, right? You mentioned earlier turning challenges to opportunities. That's where you guys come in, the sticky problems, right?
Yeah, this just hit me. Farmers have understood co-ops forever, and co-ops bringing the
Yeah.
value of more resources to local companies. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not a co-op, but we operate in the same way that we're bringing resources to local rental companies that they wouldn't have otherwise, and we're not on their payroll, which is a beautiful thing. We're operating on our own cash, and we're taking risk on our end that they typically are taking, and that is why the business model makes sense
Yeah,
for them.
is the financial part of this is if we only pay you if you sell it, or is there like a listing or like a consulting engagement, generally speaking?
Yeah, yeah. This industry is very commission based. And there are some charges such as inspection charges
Yeah,
that are typical. But one thing with Blackstar is there are no hidden fees. The
yeah,
2 or 3 fees beyond commissions that are there, are discussed, are agreed on, and nothing pops its head up. Recently, we had an agreement with a customer and they signed the agreement and we got into the latter part of the auction and I realized that the agreement uh, didn't make any sense for them below a certain number and this was after the auction was completed. I changed the terms in their favor uh, because I just felt like we neither one of us had thought about something
mm,
and that meant a lot um, 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 uh, to the seller.
yeah.
But
Doing
that's
it,
what we're going to
doing,
do. We're going to make sure that things are right.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned that multiple times. Doing the right thing. Your word is your bond, and sort of, maybe there's some initial fees, et cetera. But for the most part, it's pay for performance. Like you're the pinch hitter that you pay every time you get a hit, not the $250 million base salary, but like it's sort of like we'll pay if you get on base for us, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, Kyle, I think that um, um, if we were just to pull one thing out for rental companies is, hey, you're just not getting the equipment moved like you need to, and you need to offset that with a resource. I think that's where we make the best sense. And then from there, we can do a lot of things, but that's probably the most logical starting point.
That makes sense. Last topic briefly here is retirement dispersals. That I believe that's something you guys have had a sort of a niche and specialty in. Can you talk to me about that and how you help rental companies, particularly as they are selling or shutting down their business?
Yeah, I think because I sold my interest in the second business, that and we went through a lot of the appraisals and valuations and all that, and so I understand that, and then I understand as well the value of lifetimes of work for the equipment,
Yeah.
and it's very emotional at Blackstar that we harvest as much equity out of the equipment that they have had making their living. And obviously, a 70-year-old company is not using the same equipment. Okay, hopefully
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever equipment they're using in this 70th year is as a result of all the years that it took to get here. So you can look at it that way. And this is their 401k. A
Yeah.
lot of times, selling their equipment is their 401k. They're independent entrepreneurs, and maybe they're fortunate enough to own the land and the building, but it's equipment, land, and building, you know. And then sometimes they can sell their entire company because they've got repeat customers and all the other good things. But that's not always the case. That's not always there. And anybody who has ever sold a company knows that you can have a very long, protracted period of time where you're talking to potential suitors, and then the 11th hour, a year later, everything falls out, and then here you are
Yeah.
still with the same company. So I think some people just see the selling of their assets, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and that's why they sell their assets separately. And so we've done about a dozen of them, and we have had tremendous success. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, uh, yeah,
And it's gotta be real responsibility, right? This is someone's lifetime work, the end of their career. This is their retirement. This is not something willy-nilly you do off the side of your desk. You have a real responsibility to these families who have are trusting you to wrap up their lifetime of work, right? And it's emotional too, right? It's also acknowledging that the business is not gonna move forward as well.
and we do them at dedicated auctions, so all the buyers are paying attention to just their equipment.
Mm. And that probably helps part of the value add service you guys offer to make sure you can move as much of that as quickly as possible. Um, well, Mike, we're just out of time here. I appreciate you coming on today, explaining the auction process, pre-auction, pre-sale, private sale, the whole enchilada of moving equipment and what you guys have been doing at Black Star. Last question I have, I always ask people, best career advice you've gotten, or any really great career advice you've gotten that's helped shape your success and what you're building at Black Star.
Ah, I think that, I guess believing in what you're doing, because there's going to be a grind,
Mm.
and you can't evaluate whether you're on track or not by any one day. If you've got the right vision, you got to be able to grind through the tougher periods of time. And I think it's probably more of a mindset than a skill. And maybe that's just my DNA. So when I heard it, I just knew that I could adhere to it. So yeah, I think that's the best I can do for you, Kyle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, but sometimes it's being yourself, right? And I totally agree though. Like this, people have heard me say this 1,000 times, but my dad said it took 10 years of all nighters to be an overnight success. And the only way you can do 10 years of all nighters and really grind is if you love it and you believe in it, right? Because you can't fake it for this stuff. Not,
Yeah, I heard a professional football coach said, "This is not an easy sport. This is tough. You got to grind. And anybody that doesn't want to grind is not going to make it." And I just thought, man, that guy, I could see where he'd get his players motivated being that truthful, you know?
and you're going to get the wrong guys off the bus too, because they're going to say, yeah, I don't want to work that hard,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Go
you
play for
know,
somebody else.
That's right. Well, Mike, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you sharing everything you've been doing at Black Star, and thanks for the time today.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.